History isn't just shaped by great victories, it's shaped by great mistakes. Moments where people believed they were right and couldn't see how wrong they were. These weren't small errors, they were decisions made in confidence, in certainty, in the belief that there was no other way. And in those moments, there was no hesitation, no second guessing, only the quiet conviction that they understood the world. But those decisions didn't stay in that moment. They echoed across time. They changed the course of nations, redrew borders, and altered the lives of countless people who had no part in the choice. Wars began, ships were lost, and entire futures were rewritten. The people behind these moments weren't villains. They were explorers, engineers, leaders, men who believed they were making the right call. But they were looking at the world through a narrow lens, shaped by assumption, by pressure, by the limits of what they thought they knew. And when those limits went unchallenged, the consequences became impossible to control. Because the most dangerous force in history has never been power, it's certainty, and time again, that certainty has changed everything. In 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail from Spain, convinced he could reach Asia by sailing west. He was wrong. Not slightly wrong, but catastrophically wrong. Columbus had built his entire journey on a miscalculation. He believed the Earth was far smaller than it really was, relying on ancient estimates and misreading the work of earlier scholars. He placed Asia thousands of miles closer than it actually was. He believed the journey was possible. In reality, it should have been impossible. Had the Americas not existed exactly where they did, Columbus and his crew would have vanished into the open ocean, running out of food and water, with no land in sight. But instead, he found something else. Land he didn't understand. A world he wasn't looking for. And even then, he never realized his mistake. Columbus died in 1506, still believing he had reached the edges of Asia. He called the people he encountered Indians, a name born from a simple error that would last for centuries. But his mistake didn't just change a name, it changed everything. It opened the door to exploration, to conquest, to colonization, and to the destruction of entire civilizations. Millions of lives were altered, or lost, because one man believed his calculations were right. The world Columbus thought he was sailing toward never existed, but the one he stumbled upon would reshape history forever. In April 1912, the Titanic set sail, the largest ship ever built, a symbol of human ambition and industrial power. It was said to be unsinkable. That one word would become its greatest mistake. Because the disaster didn't begin on the night it hit the iceberg. It began long before the ship ever left port. There weren't enough lifeboats, not nearly enough. More than 2,000 people were on board, but there was space for barely half of them. And that wasn't an accident. It was a decision. More lifeboats would have crowded the decks, ruined the image, taken away from the illusion of perfection. So they chose appearance over safety, and no one challenged it. On the night of April 14th, the ship was moving fast, too fast, through waters already known to be filled with ice. Warnings had come in throughout the day, but speed wasn't reduced, because this ship wasn't supposed to fail. By the time the iceberg was seen, it was already too late. The impact came at 11:40 p.m. Within hours, the ship was gone. More than 1,500 people were left in the freezing Atlantic, and with them, the illusion disappeared. The Titanic didn't just sink, it exposed something far more dangerous. The belief that perfection was possible, that nothing could go wrong. Because when confidence goes unchallenged, it doesn't prevent disaster, it guarantees it. In 1914, a single moment changed the world. An archduke, a city street, and a mistake. The first attempt had already failed. A bomb thrown at the motorcade missed its target. The Archduke survived. It should have ended there, but it didn't, because just hours later, a wrong turn was made. The driver changed course and stopped the car, right in front of a man who was never supposed to get another chance. Gavrilo Princip, standing on the street, watching history come back to him. 2 shots were fired, and in that moment, everything changed. But the assassination wasn't the cause of the war, it was the trigger. Because Europe was already on edge, a continent bound together by alliances, agreements, and obligations, so rigid that one act of violence could pull entire nations into conflict. Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia and declared war. Russia mobilized, Germany stepped in, France followed, Britain joined, and within weeks, the world was at war. What began as a chance encounter on a quiet street in Sarajevo became a conflict that lasted 4 years, killed millions, and destroyed entire empires. The Ottoman, the Austro-Hungarian, the Russian, and the German. And when it finally ended, it didn't bring peace. It set the stage for something even worse. Because sometimes history doesn't turn on great decisions. It turns on small mistakes at exactly the wrong moment. Columbus miscalculated the size of the world. The builders of the Titanic miscalculated what they thought was unsinkable, and the leaders of 1914 miscalculated what would happen next. But none of these mistakes came from ignorance. They came from certainty, from the belief that the answer was already known. Because the most dangerous moment is not when we face the unknown, it's when we believe we've already mastered it. Columbus looked at the ocean and saw a distance he thought he could cross. The engineers of the Titanic looked at their ship and saw perfection. The leaders of Europe looked at their alliances and saw stability. But they were all looking through the same thing, assumption. And assumption goes unchallenged until it breaks everything. Because history doesn't punish ignorance, it punishes arrogance. Ignorance can be corrected. Arrogance refuses to be. And in that refusal, mistakes become disasters. Entire worlds reshaped by decisions that were never questioned. The lesson isn't to fear making choices, it's to question them, to ask what might be missing. Because the people who changed history through their mistakes weren't just failures, they were warnings, and warnings can still be listened to.